Last Saturday, His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave a talk to the Indian Chamber of Commerce in Calcutta, India. And he began his talk, as he often does, by saying, "My dear brothers and sisters." He said, I always start my talks with these words, brothers and sisters. I really believe and feel that all 7 billion human beings on this planet are actually our brothers and sisters. And then I think each of us, as a matter of fact, 7 billion human beings, in the same way we are born from our mother. And in the same way we received maximum affection from our mother. He went on to say, those who receive at that moment maximum affection from the mother, that experience remains until the last day of their life. And then he said, those individuals who may be very successful, particularly in the field of economy or business, he was talking to the Chamber of Commerce, but who are lacking receiving that love from their mother, sometimes even being an unwanted child, then I think deep inside some sense of insecurity remains the whole life. And I think perhaps because I was listening to this in the middle of the noonday, and I was a little more open and receptive, those lines really struck me. Now he went on to say, therefore, we all, 7 billion human beings, come from our mother, all have the experience of receiving maximum affection. And because of that, all 7 billion human beings have the ability to show love, show others love. He said, furthermore, we are social animals. Every social animal, you see, emotionally there is something that brings us together. That is love. Some social animals, like birds, because they lack the ability of their brain, their altruism or their love is limited and mainly is shown towards those directly related to them, their offspring. But we human beings, he said, because of this marvelous brain, this marvelous intellect, we have the ability to develop infinite love. I was still caught back on that description of maximum affection. He lost me there. And we'd really need to know His Holiness's definition. What does that mean, maximum affection? What does that really mean? What does that mean for each of us individually? To really understand his statement, we need to define that for ourselves. I agree that anyone who has received even a little bit of love in their life can certainly show love to others. And it seems obvious that even many people who didn't receive what we might call maximum affection have an amazing capacity to share love with others. Sometimes it's quite impressive. And from a Buddhist perspective, we would say that we've all had beginningless lives, and so of course we all carry seeds of compassion and love from our previous lives, regardless of what's happened in this lifetime. I think it would have been very interesting if His Holiness had kept talking to those of us who maybe perceive that we didn't receive a maximum affection from our parents, and how to heal that lack from a Buddhist perspective. This issue often comes up when we study the sevenfold instruction of cause and effect, because in the first 2 steps, we're looking at how all sentient beings have been our mothers in previous lives. And then we recollect the kindness of the mother in this life as a basis for extrapolating and extending that to all sentient beings. And this is a real stumbling block for some people who perhaps didn't have the kind of deep care that they needed from their parents, from their caregivers. It can be a real stumbling block. It's interesting that each school of psychotherapy or psychology presents their own paradigm or myth of the inner world of human beings that help support our emotional healing when there has been a sense of insufficiency or neglect or even abuse. And at some point, some people may need a deep human experience of unconditional love to overcome that sense of lack and to help them bridge the gap between those early messages from parents and caregivers and who we aspire to be, who we long to be fully functioning, open-hearted human beings. I think we could say that each religion also presents a paradigm of our inner world as human beings that helps support our unfolding, our healing, the development of our full potential. I remember back in the 90s, the sister-in-law of the Dalai Lama, Rinchen Khandro, visited Dharma Friendship Foundation. And she told a story that stayed with me all these years. In the early years when many people were coming out of Tibet, some Swiss psychologists approached her and offered their services. They said, we know that many of the nuns, she was the director of the Tibetan Women's Association in Dharamsala for over 40 years, and she was involved, I believe, with establishing some of the supportive conditions for the nuns that were coming out in particular. And they offered their services because they assumed that many of the nuns coming out of Tibet would have been imprisoned, maybe tortured, maybe even sexually abused or abused in other ways. And so they offered their services to help the nuns overcome what they assumed that they would have, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I remember her saying very clearly that she replied to the psychologist by saying, give me 2 years with these nuns, and then if we need your services, we'll check back with you. And what she found was that by creating a very loving and supportive environment for the nuns, and also because she said they had deep conviction in the law of cause and effect, deep conviction in the Dharma in general, deep conviction in their Buddha nature, that most of them, 99% of them, were able to heal and get on with their lives. And so they didn't need the services of the Swiss psychologists. My own thought is that by learning about and understanding karma, we can begin to see how, in a very gentle way, we can begin to see how we contributed to our own life experiences and move away from blaming our parents for their insufficiencies or perceived insufficiencies. We can compassionately begin to engage in purification practices that help us destroy the karmic seeds that bring about such experiences. Certainly we can meditate on forgiveness. That often comes with loving kindness meditations. That can be very healing. By engaging in practices on the 4 immeasurables, we can expand our capacity for self-love as well as love of others. Developing loving kindness and compassion in the 2 systems for developing bodhicitta, even that 3rd system we found in the Chinese tradition when we studied Buddhism, one teacher, many traditions. Things like that can be very supportive, very helpful. Also, understanding that we each have Buddha nature, just not leaving that at the intellectual level. Oh, I have Buddha nature, everybody has Buddha nature. But really thinking about how that's true, how at our very core, we're a constantly changing body and a constantly changing mind. And that if we bring new causes and conditions together, of course we can develop the conditions to become fully awakened and to develop our capacity for love and compassion. Also, I was reminded during the recent Nune, that tantric practice really offers us a beautiful opportunity to see ourselves in a different light. Several people commented that it was difficult to see themselves arising as Chenrezig, or even to see themselves in the presence of such a compassionate deity who's looking at them with no judgment, no expectations even. Just looking at them with genuine love and compassion is very healing. So there are many things within, many topics within the Buddhist tradition that help us to fill in the blanks for any insufficiency that we may have found in our upbringing in this life, that help us to go further in our development. So this is a work in progress for me. Obviously, it's something that, there are layers and layers and layers of in our development as a human being. So if you have any other thoughts of things that have supported you, or anything you'd like to share?
I had a past that I just could never, ever let go of. And when Venerable, she taught it over and over again, the 7-point cause and effect and equalizing, exchanging self and others. And there was one place where I began to understand, because we've been talking about this in the UU group, about there isn't just one cause and condition to make things happen, difficult things happen. And when I was able to step back from my own self-concern and my own sorrow, my own insufficiency of this maximum affection, is to see my parents as these extraordinary people who, despite having no framework of affection, orphanages and lots of chaos in their childhoods, and to see that they brought to our family the best that they had. And although it was quite unsettling and in a lot of ways disturbing for my young mind, and I carried it through all of my life, the Dharma really helped me to put them in this bigger family of sentient beings, and to see the level of, despite the level of suffering in their own minds, that they were able to raise 3 really wonderful people, despite that, and that brought into my own life experience and my spiritual practice a kind of, people have said over and over again, you have a tenacity about you. You have a resiliency about you. And I think that this is a direct result of that difficult beginning, and then transforming it into qualities that I could really apply to other things in my life that needed that kind of intention, including practicing the Dharma. So I think the Dharma has really helped me to see that insufficiency can be held as a loss, as something missing, or it can really be used to fulfill our own needs for making something else happen for us that takes care of that. And so it's been really there was a big shift for me about 8 years ago, and it was the Dharma specifically, and Venerable continuing to just remind us over and over again about what might be happening in other people's lives that we don't understand, that bring them into the world and have them respond in the world in the way that's the best they can do. And it was really a profound teaching for me.
I think that the maximum love idea, it's very flexible in that love can be viewed from many different perspectives. For a long time, I viewed this love, particularly maternal love, in terms of affection or show of affection or emotion or emotional support. And so if I looked at my experience from that very limited, narrow view, then I get a different feel for my upbringing. But if I broaden the concept of love and look at it from the point of view of dedication, hard work, courage, determination, collaboration, then I can really see how much love I was the recipient of. And then makes me appreciate my mother even more.